What does world-class real estate look like to you?
Trying to combine old-fashioned traditional estate agent values, but with all the modern tech that can help you move that forward.
Excellent communication is at the heart of what they do.
Great real estate looks like strong leadership.
Consistency.
A special thanks to our sponsors, Iceberg Digital, for sponsoring this week's episode.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the World-Class Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark Wall. I'm joined by Mr. Ian Macbeth. How are you, pal?
I'm all right. I just did the weigh-in this morning, the Tuesday morning weigh-in, and my digital scales say I'm 30 years of age, so that's a nice confidence builder for the day.
Yes, yeah, win.
Yeah. 11 years younger biologically, so we'll take that. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm a bit tired today. Went to the Everton game last night, which is our first night game at the new stadium. And as good as the new stadium is, it is built on a river, so there is one road in and one road out, and they haven't built a new train station or a new ferry terminal, and you're sat there waiting to get home. So a journey that should take me 50 minutes took me, how long was it? 2.5 hours to get home. So I got home like 12:15 last night. So I've missed the gym this morning. I'm not my normal energetic self by this sort of time, but yeah, it's a privilege to go, I suppose.
I hate being stuck in traffic with a car that's not moving, where I'm blocked in, I can't turn around, I can't get out. But we didn't plan this, but it's a fantastic segue to talk about conveyancing, because it's exactly how I feel sometimes with a transaction, that I'm stuck. The transaction's not moving. I'm waiting for everyone else to get moving. I'm ready to go. I want to go. I feel like the time is ticking away, but I need the traffic to move in the chain to make it work. And we're going to talk about conveyancing today, but is it quite an indirect, nice segue to that? Because that's sometimes how it feels in a chain, right?
Yeah, you're waiting for something else to happen to allow you to move forward. And that is quite often the case in conveyancing. And I think estate agents' massive frustration with conveyancing. We decided to get today's guest on because we are wanting to help agents. And there are ways that as agents we can help clients through the process. But it is very similar to that. You can be all ready and you can be just waiting for something else in a chain to happen. However, we can only control our little part of that, and as long as everyone's doing that, you can only do so much in it. So you've just got to make sure that your car engine is turned on and you're ready to go as soon as you get the green light.
That's it. And some people sit there on their phone and then they don't move, so the person behind them beeps because they haven't realised everyone in front has moved. And it just is, isn't it? It's very similar. But no, we got Jonny coming on, and Jonny's got a business called Convey, which at the moment it specifically works for mortgage brokers and the link with conveyancing. I looked at his website prior to the podcast, and he's kind of calling out brokers that are looking for referral partners that they can trust from conveyancing, people that are frustrated with slow progression, people that want to build a bit of extra income for referrals, but they kind of want to keep control of the client experience, and they feel that maybe it's a bit transactional or not personal. They've been posting recently, or Jonny's been posting recently on LinkedIn about some of the timescales that they're getting things through, 30 days, 6-week timescales, which is why it pulled me to think, right, let's get him on the podcast to talk about conveyancing, because it is a topic that we love to talk about with red faces and get frustrated about. So I think it would be insightful. His business is not necessarily for estate agents, which is why I think it's not going to be a sales fest. It's going to be just value. So I think as an estate agent that wants to learn to sort of almost take themselves out of their own body and experience and look at it through the eyes of a conveyancer or the mediator between, I think there'll be a lot of great advice shared on this particular episode. And he's a good sort of strong mindset kind of into that real focus of standards. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good chat. I'm looking forward to it. You got some good questions for him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those elements of our role that if we are not constantly looking to improve, then we've got a problem, because it's one of those things you have to get better at this. Our job is to sort of manage that process, isn't it? So we've got to get better at that every single day. So I think it'll be an insightful chat. Let's get him in, shall we?
Let's do it. Jonny, welcome to the show. How are we doing?
Thank you very much for having me. I am caffeinated and ready to go.
I see the train in.
That's the start of the one.
Yeah, I saw the train
You know
was
what?
going off central London. I would imagine you are. Oh yeah, you're
Have
on
you
those,
seen
eh?
these? Do you know what? I've got myself addicted to them. It's not good, but it's like I have a coffee in the morning, then I have a new tonic in like mid morning. It keeps me going.
Yeah, I'm on the space goods, the old mushroom hot chocolate.
Mushrooms.
So all of these new fads, isn't it? Like mushrooms and nootropics and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So
Absolutely.
easily influenced on Instagram. I think we're in trouble, aren't we?
Exactly. Yeah.
We don't have any of that rubbish up north. Anyway,
Black coffee, no milk, straight from a cow.
Yeah. Straight from the bean. Just pop beans in your mouth.
yeah, much more simple life up here.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into it. What does world class real estate look like to you, Johnny?
So world-class real estate to me, I think is obviously the best of the best. So I had to think a lot about this, and I put it down to 5 things. I think the first thing and the most important thing is the people. So the people around the team, I don't think that you can be world-class just as a single individual. I think you have to work with a team of people who elevate each other up, and you have the right team around you to really achieve what you want to go get. I think the second thing is absolutely relentless standards. You know, anybody that I see that is like truly world class in anything, they just absolutely do not compromise on their standards, and they don't tolerate average. I think the third thing out of being world class, especially in real estate, is people they don't rely on luck. They have systems built in for absolutely everything, and that's, you know, like handling a complaint, doing a deal. Even if somebody has a bad day, they have like a system in place to get out of that by the end of the day. And I think that really sets people apart. The fourth thing I think is that they focus on what they can control, and they don't let outside influences affect them or affects their energy. So, you know, if mortgage rates change, if COVID comes around, I don't think world-class people have been affected by these things. They're seeing maybe not the good in it, but they're seeing like, how do I now attack this? And lastly, and the thing that ties this all up, is they're just relentlessly consistent with absolutely all of that. So, you know, they are showing up every single day to execute on what they want. And, you know, like I said, if it's in a team, then they're all coming together as a team to really build each other up in that as well. And that for me is what I truly believe is world class. I think that, you know, it's absolutely, you can't be average, and these things you really have to double down on.
Yeah, nice. So what have we got? We've got people, we've got systems. People, systems.
Focus on what you can control, having standards, and then at the end, consistency.
Yeah.
What a great answer. Great answer. And also a great answer that can relate to world class. I think what you've taken there is world class in any walk of life, really, rather than just agency. But that's kind of like the blueprint to world class in any area, in any industry, any individual, I think, Mark.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let's unpack each one then, shall we, Johnny? Let's talk about people and bringing and then retaining world-class people into a business. How do you think estate agency owners and business owners generally can improve on that process?
I think with I'm going to sort of focus, I guess, on estate agency, and you've spoken about it so many times before in this podcast, is that a lot of estate agents fall into estate agency. So I think that the people that are world class normally have a good idea of like how an estate agent is run and what goes on in that. I think it's hard to pick that up straight away. So I don't know many people who sort of aren't in the market, come into the market later on in life. So I normally see that people who are running these world-class estate agents, they've been estate agents their whole lives. And I don't know if you know any other people that have kind of come in at a later date and what that looks like. But, you know, from everybody that I know in estate agency, they've done it since like their very first job. You know, maybe they were 15 and they just sort of walked into an estate agency. I know you had somebody on here who walked to the bottom of a hill and was just like, you got a job for me. So to retain it, you really just need to appreciate the people that you have. You know, we talk about culture a lot, and culture isn't just something that you can just say. You really have to like live it. And I think some of the ways that we can build culture is just appreciating the individual, getting them involved in, you know, like decisions, not just giving them a job and saying, go do, like, this is your job, go do it. You need to give them a bit of rein to like actually use their own mind and implement their own ideas. And I think only that way you can really unlock the best out of someone.
Do you think as well, Johnny, with especially an agency with teams, because I agree that you can't. It's much easier to do it as a group than it is on your own.
Yeah.
Outside of your brand, your business, your employees, or your contractors, you've obviously got your team of mortgage advisors, removal companies. We're going to talk about conveyancing, obviously, today. Your conveyancer that you want to kind of work with, that you partner up with too. All your lettings director to the side of you. You kind of got in agency this team that you want to build. And I'll be honest, I get messaged quite a lot by people, and they say, so and so needs a solicitor, or they need some conveyancing for this, and who do you work with? And I can actually, any of those teams, I'm quite happy to say, use these, they'll look after you. But I do struggle with that answer. I kind of say, just do your due diligence online, because I don't really have one to pass to. And we will come to that and talk about that, because I think it's important for agency. But the team outside of the brand is as important, I guess, as the team inside of the brand in the property game, isn't it? You're in property, we're in property, different sectors of it, but it's so vital.
It is. And, when you have you have your own customer and they've got your trust. So, estate agents, mortgage brokers, they build up this trust over possibly years. Like a lot of people that have possibly seen like Avocado, they might have seen you 3, 4, 5 years ago, and you've worked so hard to build up that trust. And then they finally come to sell their house with you. If you then recommend somebody who's not in line with your service, then that has a knock-on effect. That can affect you as a business and you as an individual, because your recommendation is an extension of your trust. And as the professional, you have the obligation, I think, to be able to recommend somebody who is of a similar level. And when it comes to conveyancing, it is a tough one. The hardest thing in my job is finding the right solicitors to do the job, because again, if I recommend a solicitor, it's my business, it's based on my trust. So if it's not up to standard, then they're just going to go look somewhere else, and then I haven't got a business, or I have to then double down on the marketing and the sales and everything like that. So you have to really look after like what you've got. And we go back to that people aspect, and I think world-class people, they naturally have these other world-class people gravitate towards them. And I don't know how, maybe it's just, you sort of, people can see what you're doing. But I think when you have these standards and you have this almost like aura about you that you are this world-class person, I think other people they do gravitate towards that.
Yeah, I agree. You talked about, we started talking about people, and you had the 5 elements of world-class, but actually one leads off the other. As you said, a world-class person can ignore the noise, ignore the economic outlook, and actually that attracts other talented people to come towards them. We've all been there with conveyancing, I think, in particular, where we've recommended a client and then probably taken the blame for a bad experience. And quite often as agents, we can get the blame. And I think this is one of the reasons that we struggle reputationally as an industry. Quite often we can get the blame when it's something outside of our control. So in terms of conveyancing as an agent, what do you think we should be looking for so that we don't make those mistakes of recommending the wrong partners?
I think there's 2 parts of it. So we have a couple of different frameworks in what we do. So if I'm speaking to your listeners, then they're looking for a solicitor to use, maybe they're new in the game, or if they just want somebody else to refer through to, we use the RARE formula. And when you're looking for a solicitor, it's reviews, awards, referrals, and experience. Now, reviews and awards, they're obviously great to look at because, you can kind of see what experiences other people have had, but sometimes they can be a little bit tampered with, I've found. Like, if you go to like Trustpilot reviews or some other review sites, people can just put their own reviews on there. Similar to awards, some people, estate agents, solicitors, if they've got a load of awards, and that's great. You can see that they're sort of, they get it for a reason. Again, sometimes they can sort of pay into that and get an award that they maybe don't truly deserve. But them 2 things, they really are a good show of how good a solicitor is. But I think the main thing that I look for is a recommendation. So, and I know a lot of agents talk to each other. The same thing in the broker world. They're quite a close community. So you can speak to a lot of people around you, and they can typically recommend a good. I know, Ian, that you said you find it hard to maybe offer that recommendation, but there are great solicitors out there, and I think sometimes you just have to find the right ones. And And the final one is experience. You know, how many transactions do you guys do between yourselves? Like, there's going to be a great solicitor out there who's been perhaps on the other side, or that you've worked with that's been really good. And I think it's really important just to be aware of that. Because, you know, if you have a great solicitor that you work with, it's similar if you're in like a legal dispute and the person on the other side has got a great solicitor, and you know, you lose. In the future, you're going to want to use them because they've done a great job. So that's one thing that I look out for when choosing a solicitor. And then when it comes to actually recommending one, once you've got that solicitor, I think there's a lot of things that referrers, so estate agents, brokers, can do themselves to improve that process anyway themselves. And this is, you know, when we talk about world class, I think also about extreme accountability is, you know, I am responsible for everything that I do. So when we make the recommendation, we have our FAST framework, and it's making sure that when you are quoting or making a recommendation, you do it as early as possible so that we can kind of front step some of that stuff. I know that back in the day, there was like hips and different stuff that you can kind of get people set up quickly.
Bring them back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's obviously an element of that is really beneficial. So, you know, there's things that we can do, like even just getting documents filled out, return. You know, if you're buying a house, we can order the searches as soon as possible, getting your source of funds as early as possible. All these things, they might sound like not that important, but if they're going to front load the work for the solicitor, they're going to set everything in this forward motion, you know, from the offset, we're getting all this done, then that then helps throughout the rest of the transaction. So I think there's this element that agents, referrers, brokers can really help to improve that service. And then it's down to the customer. So the customer's going through that journey, which, I don't know, can be 5 to 6 months, or, you know, longer or shorter. And there's even things that they can be doing. So like I said, filling in documentation, and just returning documents, preparing. You know, I deal with so many clients where they just leave things for like a couple of weeks, and that can really delay things as well. So I think there's like everybody in the process just needs maybe like education. We need to set expectations with the client. And I think when you bring this all together, which isn't easy, and there's so many different parts that could be missing, that is like the success formula for a successful move. But saying that, you could do all of that and it could still all fall apart, because you could have somebody on the other side who's you know, delaying things, maybe not got a great solicitor, and you're only as fast or only as good as the slowest person in the chain. So you know, that's my answer. You can do as much as you can. Again, take extreme accountability, but there's obviously external factors that sometimes can have an effect on it.
And with Convey, you know, the business that you're the MD for and set up. Yeah, you've been on. Obviously we know each other. I've seen we met at EAX, the Iceberg conference, but we kind of followed each other on LinkedIn for a while. You're not scared of being controversial with your industry, I would say, in your messaging. I mean, being front, you piss off quite a lot of conveyancers with some of your content. And I don't mind that, because it sparks the conversation. I got involved in one of the debates probably a few months ago, start of the year maybe, where you really kicked off a whole shitstorm. But what's, you know, we're estate agents are listening. There probably won't be too many conveyancers listening here. But at the same time, the industry, we kind of have with brokers, we have a fairly good relationship. You know, estate agents and brokers normally have quite a good relationship. But estate agents and solicitors and conveyancers don't always have a great relationship. I actually feel there's a bit of a lack of respect between the two industries. We kind of feel they're the, you know, the failed solicitor, if you like, and they kind of feel we're not a profession, so we can't call ourselves a profession because we haven't qualified for anything. So there's a bit of a lack of kind of stuff, and sometimes estate agents feel they know more than a solicitor, and a solicitor will always fight back, and you know, you're kind of the poor man's version of a segment of the property market. So it is a tough relationship. But why do you think that is? Because you were an agent, you work with brokers, you're now in the conveyancing referral game. What's the broken link? Is there a silver bullet? Is there an answer?
I think it's quite clear why there is this problem in the industry. And I think that for me, it comes down to the personalities of the people that we're talking about. So, you know, when we look at estate agents, they're typically more salesy. So they're a bit more outgoing. You know, they're there to do a job. They're very customer focused, and, they're there to do a job. They're there to sell the home. And then when we look at solicitors, you have to look at, maybe, like, let's just say they just trained to be a lawyer. They've been sat in a book. They've been, learning the law. And when it comes to law, you have to be so, like, black and white almost, because it's the law. So when you look at them, two different personalities, they are going to clash, because you got, like, a salesy person against somebody who's a bit more, I don't know how you say it, just, like, in the book. So when you have different opinions, they're going to be completely different, clashes. Now, that obviously works, because you need solicitors to do their job, you need estate agents to do their job. So that is always going to be there. I don't know if there's a silver bullet to obviously make it better. The only thing that I've found is open communication. So, and I said that we had our combi event on Friday, and the thing that I like to do is just get everybody in a room together. And I know it sounds so simple, but when you get people talking to each other, you kind of realize that we're all doing this together. And at the end of the day, we're doing it all for the same client. So we all have the same goal of getting that client through to completion. Now, rightly so, I know that estate agents would like it done quicker, and as solicitors have, these things that they have to sort of jump through to get it through to completion. And I think, again, that could be where the disparity is. The agents just like, just get it done, because that's what, the personalities like, to just get it done. And solicitors more like, well, I've got to go through these steps to get through there. But I think I guess if I was to say if there's any silver bullet, it would just be to actually build a relationship with the person that you're working with. I've seen videos online where police officers spend 24 hours or something with like criminals or convicts or whatever, and by the end of it, they get on, because they realize that we're all just people at the end of the day. And I think the more that we can build that community, maybe as a whole, like an industry, it might be quite difficult, but if you look after your own segment or your own business, and you build them relationships up, I think that'll be the best way to start to build that trust with the solicitor that you refer through to.
Yeah,
I agree. I think when you're working with a solicitor, it needs to be a two-way street. And I think it's a very good point, Jonny, about the different personalities. I've got a case going through at the moment that I've pushed really hard and fought tooth and nail to keep together, and the solicitor gave up on it 4 weeks ago, and it'll exchange this week. And I think there's probably a bit of resentment from agents that solicitors get paid anyway. And sometimes you can feel, oh, well, they don't really give a shit whether the case goes through or not. But actually, the most successful relationships that we have with solicitors are the ones that communicate back with us, but we also have to respect them. So at certain times, you're not ringing them for a generic update that could take place on a Wednesday, and you're ringing them on a Friday morning when they're trying to do all of their completions, for example. I would really encourage any estate agents listening to sit, as you say, it's always easier face-to-face, sit down with your the people that you refer to, build a relationship, as you say, package everything up to them to make their life easier at the start. I always say that process saves on average 2 weeks, which might not sound a lot at the start of the transaction, but actually when everyone's really tense after 12 weeks of back and forth and getting a bit pissed off, those 2 weeks could save the deal or otherwise. And then have clear lines of communication and expectation on how you are being reported to. Well, I sent an email to a solicitor the other day and got an automated email reply, which basically said, piss off, I'll get to you when I get to you. And it's like, do you know what? If you've got that automated email on that goes to me, that email goes to clients. That is terrible client service. Whereas actually, if you were referring to, I would never refer to someone that did that sort of thing, but if you were referring to somebody like that, then you are never going to get the response that you want. You would be better saying, right, we have an update at 10 o'clock every Wednesday, and you report to me on all of your files. Would those be the sorts of things that you think can help build that relationship? And as agents, should we be looking at the caseload that conveyancers are taking on and making a judgment that there is a certain number that is too much? Yeah.
And, this is one of the things that does really sort of upset me. Because you guys work so hard for your clients, and then again, like we said at the start of the chat, you're then recommended to somebody, and if it's just a lesser service, it really impacts them. And home moving is one of the most exciting things that somebody can do in their life. It's like buying their first home or upsizing, whatever it is. It is so exciting, and then they're then chucked into this process that they have no idea about, and then it just becomes so stressful and everything. So it's very frustrating. I think there is definitely things that agents can do in terms of communication. the one thing that we do that we found really, really works is, like you say, setting kind of clear expectations as to what we want out of it. So we obviously have a number of clients that we instruct through to different solicitors every single month. And with each and every solicitor, we have a weekly update. So we set even like half an hour. It doesn't take that long because we just go boom, boom, boom. These are the cases. Like you know, we in this call and all your listeners, we kind of know the process. So we know at what stage it is going to be given the information that they give us. So we have weekly calls. So at a very bare minimum, we know every single week, this is where it's at. And, you know, from Convi, we then go and update the client. So then that's not up to the solicitor. So we kind of try and take that away from the solicitor so they can focus on the legal work. We can then give that update to the referrer and the client. But for the agent, you know, if you're speaking to that solicitor once a week, and it can feel like a big ask to ask a solicitor, but in the long run, you know, and this is the conversation that you have to have in the long run, if we're setting, I don't know how many sort of clients like a typical estate agent would send through, but let's just say you send like 10 through a month. If you're having a 10 to 15 to 20 minute phone call with the solicitor that you're referring through to, you get an update on all of them and you say, really appreciate that, thank you. And then you can go update the clients so you know where it is, or you can say, can you just send them a quick email to give them an update? And then, you know, I think that if you have a bare minimum of one weekly update a week, at least everybody knows what's going on. Now, there's a lot that can go on in that process. You know, if you're nearing through to exchange and completion, once a week probably isn't going to cut it. Like, you need to know like almost daily or half a day, like what's going on so you can get the contract signed. But I think that, you know, we really rely on them weekly updates. And then the way that we then communicate to the clients is then through WhatsApp. So we're using, I know I didn't talk about technology at the world class bit because I think that there's sort of like an over thing of what you need to do, but meeting the clients where they're at. So we're using WhatsApp to communicate, making it much easier for them. And that's really helped the whole process.
It was going to be my next question actually, which is actually what does make like a world-class conveyancer? Because you're kind of talking to multiple conveyancers at the moment. Convi kind of specifically supports mortgage brokers that are looking for referral partners that they trust. I've seen, and it's one of the reasons I messaged you actually, because I've seen a lot of your posts recently about the speed in which transactions are going through, which is, you know, there's been some phenomenal ones. I saw Scott in the background of one of those shots smiling as well, that I know very well, really good mortgage advisor that obviously works with you. But I mean, we're talking some phenomenal timescales that are happening now. And that's what agents want to see. That's what clients want to see. You know, if we're getting cases through in 40 days and things like that, what does that world-class version of what you're seeing look like that's getting those results? Yeah.
So again, it goes down to everything we kind of discussed, where you have to get everybody on board, because if everybody's not on board, then you're not going to get that. And I'm not going to say that, you know, we get 7 week completions every single time. It's just that we are in the best position to do that if the opportunity comes up. So we have, like I said, we have our formula. So it's called the fast track service. So FAST. The first thing, get the first thing set up fast. So when I talk about the source of funds, we order searches on a purchase on the day of instruction. And these things can all be done, you know, by your agents. If your agents speak to the solicitor that they're working with, some can do this. So order searches right at the very start.
Because Johnny, just sorry to interrupt you there, because that's important, because I find searches is a big issue for a lot of solicitors, because they're waiting for the draft contract to come back before ordering them, and it's like we're relying on someone else to send that contract back to then initiate. So, but you get around that with day of instruction, do you?
Correct. Yeah. So when a client instructs us, there's 3 things that we do. We order this is on a purchase. We order the property searches, so we get the searches ordered from day one. I think that they used to wait for the draft contract to come in to order it because they needed like a title number or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but I have no idea why they do it now. So we order the searches right from the start on day one. That means, and you know, searches, they don't take so long to get back, so it doesn't make a massive difference, but just having them there ready, if there's anything that needs to be brought up, they can then address it and get it dealt with, rather than having them come back, you know, 2 weeks down the line, like you said at the start, Mark. If you have 2 weeks saved right at the start, then that really helps the back end. So we order the searches from day one. We then call the estate agent to give them the solicitor's details, because again, one of the first things that needs to happen is you guys can send out the sales memorandum. And then we send the client their initial paperwork on the day of instruction as well, which goes through to them online. Now, these three things aren't revolutionary. Like anybody can do this. But when we send the client the paperwork from the very start, it means that they can fill it in straight away. And then, if your clients are selling a house, I would recommend, and I don't know if you guys do this, getting the client set up way before they've even accepted an offer on their property, because the sales paperwork, it can be quite lengthy. So let's just say you sell the house on a Monday. I can't imagine many clients are going to sit there that evening, go through 2-3 hours of paperwork to get it done. They're going to probably say, okay, I'll wait till this weekend to get it done. And again, we go back to these little details. That's 1 week that's now lost, that the solicitor can't send the draft contract because they haven't got their client's initial documentation. So yeah, sending the clients their documentation as soon as possible, ordering the searches, letting you guys, the estate agents, know the solicitor's details so you can send out the memo. And then it's just these small, we have automated small reminders that just let clients know, fill out your paperwork if it's not done, so that we can get it back and then we can move on. Because once the solicitor has the paperwork, they can just get on with their job. We want to try and reduce what the solicitors don't have as much as possible. Just give them everything they need so they can go do what they need to do.
Yeah, it's not revolutionary, is it? Actually, it's pretty straightforward. We do our packs with Gazelle, and we do the property information forms and attach them to the memos. So as soon as the memo goes out, buyer solicitor has got the property information form, seller solicitor has got it, and the clients aren't having to fill it in twice. But you're exactly right. I always say to people at evaluation that those property information forms can be quite daunting. And when you've sold your house, your focus is on where you're going and that exciting part, not dealing with these forms that if you used to print them off would be that thick and sit on the coffee table for a couple of weeks. So I'm a really big believer that you can shave a couple of weeks off just by doing that really simple process. Can I just go back to the searches side of things then? Yeah. So because we get this a lot, and we get, we can't order searches until we've got the draft contract. We had someone actually incidentally order searches on the wrong house a couple of weeks ago, but that was their problem. That was their issue. They got the number wrong, but they don't need the draft contract. So as agents, we should be pushing back on that fact. Have you any idea why they wait for the draft contract? Is it because they want to make sure that they're ordering it for the right address, or is it just a really cautious solicitor thing that they do because they're scared to do something wrong in case they get sued and shit, 200 quid might, put them out of business, that sort of thing? Yeah.
I think it's all of that. And again, it goes back to, when we look at the type of personality that solicitor is. And, we have, funny enough, we talk about Scott, when if we have a solicitor that doesn't order searches until they've had the draft contract back, he kicks up. And it goes back to this world class, he's putting pressure on this because he knows that we need to do these things to get it through quickly. But yeah, I think it's that they want the draft contract. They want to look at all the information. They want to know that what they're ordering is the right search. And I think it goes back a little bit where they had to get the draft contract to get the title number, and you need the title number to order the property searches. So there was that thing. And now I think that they're just kind of stuck in their ways where they say, oh no, this is just the way that we do it.
Yeah.
And, a lot of these law firms, they're still run by a bit of an older generation who lived in that period where they had to go through that process. So it's just, it's just carried on, and they have their set process. This is how we do it. One of the benefits that we have, and a lot of other solicitors can offer, is they have something called a search fee guarantee. So we order the search back from the very first day of instruction. Again, you say, it's only a few £100. If they then don't go ahead with that purchase for any reason, we'll just order their second search pack for free. So, the client's not a risk if it falls through. If it means that we're going to get a week, even a few days ahead of where we're at, then that's going to make a real big difference. And then again, if it all just goes kaput, which it does, then we can just order the new search pack for free, and there's no risk to the client.
Yeah, I think the other thing for me that I've always found with trying to get that commitment, if a sale is going to bomb out, it's often going to bomb out in the last 15% of the transaction, or the first 15% of the transaction. It's not very often it bombs out in the middle section. And I always found that once a buyer is financially committed through searches, they have spent that couple £100, it feels like a much more concrete, we try and say our mortgage evaluation or survey booked, but actually the searches are the quickest way to get some sort of financial commitment out of a buyer. And it doesn't surprise me that Scott's banging the drum about that, because Scott is another classic example of someone that's got very, very high standards, very high work ethic, great, very knowledgeable broker. And it doesn't surprise me that he expects everyone around him to be at the same standard, because that is what world class does look like. But yeah, that's the thing for me, is that financial commitment from the buyer that you're talking about there. And yes, it isn't revolutionary, but credit where it's due to Convey, it kind of is, because there's no conveyancing referral partner that's calling the estate agent to say, these are the details that you need for your sales memos. There's no referral partner that's actually getting a weekly update in and doing that legwork and being the mediator between the estate agent and the conveyancer, because normally the estate agent's sending an email, can I get an update on 12 Acacia Avenue please? The solicitor's receiving that and going, do me a favour, it's Monday at 9:30, like get over yourself, and they're replying yes later, and then all of a sudden everyone's pissed off with each other. But actually, if you're involved in that kind of that more admin based update, that's amazing for both parties, because as we spoke about with personalities, a lot of estate agents are kind of a red-yellow mix of flamboyant, direct kind of style, and then conveyancers, very much, I work with a lot of surveyors, very similar, very analytical. Some of them are quite empathetic, some of them are reds, but they're reds in different ways, so that sort of translator almost in the middle that you're offering is I think it is revolutionary. I think it's great. It's not difficult to do, but it's not done very frequently, so it's very rare to find, which is great. What talking tech, you mentioned about tech being that under that overlay or that underbelly of good businesses, and we've spoke about generations above us, where we've got kind of maybe agents and solicitors that are in their kind of late 50s, early 60s, that don't understand. For example, you might get a solicitor to say, oh, can I have the EPC for so and so? It's like, well, just like go online and get it. But or sometimes it still blows my mind when someone asks us to fax over the invoice or something like that. But that is in the world that we live in. The new generation are embracing tech and AI. Does that have an impact over the next couple of years in conveyancing for you, Jonny? You've got more of a finger on the pulse there. Are solicitors trying to embrace more tech and AI to speed up the process, or is that lost on them? You smile.
I think if we talk about the general population of solicitors, again, they're quite heavily regulated. So there's a lot of tech companies that are coming in, and some of them are doing some great things. And I wouldn't say any of the tech is really actually affecting the process itself. The process is so archaic. I think it's not changed for like a couple hundred years. So I haven't seen much tech that's really actually affecting, you've got people like Gazelle, who, if you use Gazelle, then that is a complete change of how the process works. But there's nothing really that I'm seeing is having a massive effect right now. I think that the main thing that's going to make a real difference is the way that we communicate and operate to the customer. So, there's systems that are now putting agents, brokers, solicitors into one group chat, so you can all be, open and honest communication. But I can't, I think that all solicitors are going to say AI doesn't have a place in conveyancing, because what we do is so you need a conscience to do it. And
bullshit.
Good job some solicitors aren't listening, because it is. There's if a person can read a contract and make a decision, what's to say that it could do it now? Like AI, ChatGPT, you can put a contract in there, it could read the contract. It might be missing a few things. Like right now might not be the best time. There might even be some law specific things that read contracts, can then raise the right inquiries and then send them out to the other side solicitors. And then there's also no reason why that solicitor or that system can't then operate. And when we think about that, this is possibly in the maybe a bit further future, because there's regulation involved. But what's to say that these two systems couldn't just talk almost instantly, and then you can just complete contracts? And I don't know, there's obviously a lot that's going to have to happen within that, but I think that there is a risk there. And I think that the way that we do things will change. I don't think it's going to be here for the next 5 years, to be honest. I think there's going to be more tech that's going to come in that helps with just like communication, keeping people updated. things like, have you guys heard of like View My Chain?
Yeah.
Around for a while, they can kind of give you these updates and stuff like that. But again, when you have so many different technology companies, they all do their own little thing and they're not all connected. So they're kind of like, what one do you want to use? And I think that's probably similar for a state agency as well. You have all these different things and you just like, what one do we use in our business to really have a big effect? But I think AI will stay for the next 5 years. But after that, there's going to probably be some crazy stuff that comes out that just, wipes it all away.
I watched Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, the one with Johnny Depp in, on the weekend with the kids. We try and sit there on a Sunday and watch a film, and we watched that one. And Charlie's dad worked in the factory, and then a robot came in and he was made redundant. So he was like the packager, and then a robot comes in and packages the chocolate effectively. And then later on in the film, the robot breaks and Charlie's dad gets re-employed because someone needs to fix the robot and press the button. And I think for conveyancers, if there's anyone listening, you can send them this part. AI and technology, it's not going to be a fear factor. It's not a replacement. It's an enhanced mechanism. That's what it is. And I think estate agents feared it a few years ago and were like, no, it's going to, everyone's like, oh, it's going to replace you. And there'll be robots doing viewings and estate agents are knackered. And, and it isn't. What it's made is the agents that have embraced AI and tech, it's made them better agents. They're not being replaced. If you don't learn it, someone will replace you because someone always has to be intelligent enough to press the button because you can't do it without pressing the button. And that's what I think, if conveyancing can adapt that and go, right, how do we embrace this? How do we speed ourselves up with our roles within the business? That's the real key. And that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory video film that I watched, I thought, what a great simple analogy. It was obviously made before the rise of AI, but that is AI. Yes, it can make the process, as you've spoke about lots of models that you've got in your business faster, but someone's got to press the button and someone's got to fix it, and that's the beauty of it. If you know how to fix it and you know how to make it and you know how to improve the machine or the AI or whatever you want to call it, then that's the new role of what you need to do. So no, really insightful, and I appreciate you coming on. There'll be a lot of agents that will now go, oh right, how do we start referring to Convey? Obviously you do work with brokers, but you do work with the odd estate agent. Are you looking to maybe expand into accepting estate agents, or are they a bit too needy for you?
Well, that's why we didn't initially, but it's we've got frameworks, we've got systems, we've got processes. So there's a reason that we've just gone to brokers, because that's just out. We've niched down into that we want to go work with them. But everything that we've spoken about, all of our systems, everything that we do, it can just be implemented. So, I want to give as much value as possible. So a lot of what I talk about, they can just hopefully go away and use anyway. But I think that, we will start opening up to estate agents. It's the exact same thing. You guys are great. So I'm sure there's some other brilliant estate agents out there. And I know that, everybody should benefit from having a great solicitor. There's so much trust that goes into a recommendation to a solicitor. We're trying to, we talk about technology, we're trying to kind of like go left when everybody goes right. We're just doubling down on our service. It's so simple to get it right. You just communicate, give a fair fee, and get it done quickly. That's all we need to do. There's things that agents can implement just from hopefully what we've spoken about, but also if they want to have a chat, then we are open to working as well. So just feel free to reach out.
Nice. Appreciate that. Well, thank you for coming on, Jonny. Really insightful. Like I say, it's good to change the narrative of the podcast away from agency, but still link it back. I know this is a topic which it boils everyone's blood, but from both sides, so it's great to openly talk about it through the eyes of what you're doing, because you can sit in the middle as that kind of mediator translator. So appreciate you coming on. And if anyone wants to get in contact with you, probably best to jump on LinkedIn, drop you a DM there. I would have thought you're quite active there, aren't you?
Yeah, best to get in touch on LinkedIn.
Thanks.
Amazing. Thanks, Jonny. A massive thank you once again to Jonny Palmer from Convey for joining us. Ian, there is no magic bullet. There is no silver bullet, no magic sauce. There are just, as I think there is in estate agency, managing that conveyancing process, there are a lot of little things that you can do either well or not at all that will make a difference to the outcome.
Yeah, and it seems to comes back to personality clashes and communication, doesn't it? You know, if we're putting the link between agents and conveyancing, we can all have great framework, and the top 10% are going to be the top 10%. It's just hard to find the needle in the haystack.
Yeah.
And the top doesn't mean you're the best at what you do. It's just who is your synergy with, you know, who is that, who's your person, who's that person. You mentioned team as point number one to the answer to what does world class look like. You know, can you get a conveyancer that you've worked with for a long period of time that is in your team, in your corner, and they feel like you're in their team as well? When you get that synergy, everything's a lot easier, I think. And that's one of the takeaways that came from it is, you know, how we communicate with each other. It sometimes has to be more respectful between the two industries, both ways. And that I think would make things a lot easier. It's a shame that the AI and tech approach to things that we are doing more of in our industries, by the sounds of it, not really even on the roadmap for conveyancing, because we would desire that and love to see more of that adopted, I think, in their industry, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I think that is a shame because I think there's massive efficiencies to be made there, but I could not for 1 minute possibly disagree with him about timescales, and the majority of conveyancers are probably, it's not even in their long-term plan, I would imagine, at the moment, but then I think it absolutely should be. There's loads of potential for efficiencies to be found using AI in the conveyancing process. We talked about it with Mark Burgess months ago when he came on. And I think it's a really good point as, you know, is that something that we could encourage? Because I think that relationship between conveyancers and estate agent can be improved by a couple of those things. And some estate agents might sit here and say, oh, well, that's not our job. Doing the paperwork for the solicitor is not our job. It might not specifically be our job, but if our job is to get transactions completed and that forms a part of it that could save, and I agree with Jonny, 2 weeks plus, because those forms take time, then actually it is part of our job, and we have to make sure that we're doing it and making the conveyancer's job as easy as possible, because you're quite right. Our relationship with our conveyancing partners that we are recommending can be the difference between a good review or a bad review for us. Therefore, you know, it's not only the review but the client experience that's impacted. If we've got the ability to pick the phone up when we need to and have a conversation with a conveyancer, that's a very different relationship to one with a conveyancer that you've never met, because a lot of the problems that you have will be with conveyancers that you don't work with. So if you can encourage more to use your conveyancers, those relationships, and Jonny's right, a weekly 20-minute call going through all of your cases will make life a lot easier for both parties. There'll be less back and forth. There'll be less clients phoning up to contact them, because really what we're going to do is get our clients to phone the solicitor a lot of the time, because we say, well, we can't do anything. You know, you need to have that conversation. There'll be times that even with the best solicitors, they'll need to do that. But actually, can we let them get on with their job and do what we would be doing anyway, but in a more efficient manner? So there's just a lot of little tips in what Jonny gave us that if agents aren't doing, they can implement those just to shave off. You know, even if you listen to this podcast and shaved off an average of 2 days from your conveyancing timeline in a year, it will definitely earn you money.
I think also that you mentioned the time saved, but I also think by getting this stuff done and paid for up front in the first couple of days, I think we'll also see a reduction in the amount of bomb outs that happen in the first 2 weeks, because as I mentioned on the pod, I think that's a big part of when, you know, if we say 30% of house sales bomb out or transactions fall through, whatever terminology you want to adopt to it, I think if we could get people off to a win in the first 2 weeks rather than it all just goes snail pace and buyers keep getting email alerts of new properties, and when you've paid for something, it's yours, you've got ownership. And what happens with buyers is if they haven't paid for anything or haven't done anything in the first 3 weeks, and then they get an email notification with a house around the corner that's 10 grand less, they haven't bought anything at that point. So it's easy to go, well, let's just have a look at it. It's a big decision. If they're financially committed, they don't do that. They delete the email. And I think that can stop that part of it as well, is it's the commitment of FOMO disappears because they've got ownership to something. They even if it's just 200 quid, 250 quid, still a lot of money for someone to go, no, I've started the ball rolling now. You know, if you were trying to cross sell and get someone to use your mortgage advisor, but they've already paid £500 for advice with that mortgage broker, even though they haven't done the application, you're not getting that mortgage lead. They're already financial. It's the same thing. So I think it has that impact on it as well. You know, potentially if everyone did it, the 30% fall through ratio instantly drops to the teens, I think, you know, under 20.
You've got to get them on the treadmill, haven't you? And the sooner you can get them moving, they're then progressing. Nobody really in life likes just standing still and just waiting. And quite often in that first few weeks, if they've not got the draft contract, or if they've not paid for the searches, like you said, there's no progress, they've not moved forward, and then there might be questions, and we've had it with purchasers before, where the draft contract hasn't gone out as quickly as we'd like. Are they serious about selling? Do they actually want to sell this house? And meanwhile, if you've not done the forms, the seller is off looking at houses because that's their focus. Their single track mind is, right, we sold our house, where are we going to live? And those forms are not important to them whilst they're doing this. And I do believe that those days, or in many cases weeks at the start of the process, they just get added on at the end. And it's the classic, another day older, another day colder. When the transaction is in the advanced stages, if you have a little hiccup and it's been going on 12 weeks, that is a much more major hiccup than if it occurs at 8 weeks, because they're still bought in, they're still excited about it. That excitement just dies down, and the trust between both parties dies down as the longer a transaction goes on as well. I can't remember who it was that told me this, but I really strongly believe that there is a graph in agency and conveyancing with time and trust. And as time goes on, your trust in the transaction just goes down and down. And that's why, as you say, the sales that fall through most commonly are in that final part, or in the first part because people were never committed anyway. But in that final part, they fall down because people have lost trust in the process. And these little things that we can do, and they are little things, make a massive difference when you get to the end of the transaction and you can get it through. You only remember the ones that fall through, but I bet if you look back on them, they'll be the ones where action didn't take place in the first few minutes. You didn't get on the treadmill.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, use the treadmill analogy. We're into our, you know, races and events. Imagine training for something in 9 months' time, knowing you think you're going to do it, but you haven't paid for the event, you haven't subscribed to it. The commitment is just not the same, right? And it's almost like, I speak to a lot of the guys in my running group. It's, you know, how's training going? I haven't really got anything to train for at the moment. Yeah. So it's a bit average. They sign up for an event 2 weeks later and bang, they are on it. You know? Yeah. Spend 75
very good analogy, that.
It's the same thing, you know, it's that commitment to the cause. And I think that's what we're talking about here ultimately. So no, love that episode. What a great podcast. Jonny, you know, great guest to get on as well. Lots of good value shared. So yeah, really enjoyed it. And hopefully people listening have made some good notes there, or some good things to try and help that part of you know, our industry kick off, because it's a big section of it, isn't it? You know, it's a big chunk of the business that we work in. So yeah, really enjoyed it.
Doesn't matter how good we are at the front end, if we're crap at the back end, your business ain't going to be a success, is it? So yeah, really interesting, and hopefully just some little key takeaways that people can go away and implement straight away. Or it's quite often the case with these things, just little reminders. Oh, we were doing that. We've fallen out of the practice of doing it. So yeah, massive thank you to Jonny for joining us. As you know, we do this because we love our industry. We want to see it improve and get better. A massive shout out to Iceberg Digital for sponsoring today's episode. I'm Mark Worrell. Here's Ian Macbeth. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you again next week.